Hey guys, it's Nichole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. Let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Nichole Eaton, back with another episode. And today's episode is so special because I actually invited back Heather Maio, Self Optimization Facilitator, two-time gym owner, and host of the Magic Mindset podcast, to impose her wisdom. If you missed our last podcast, it was incredible. It was one of my most listened to podcasts, so I had to bring her back. And this episode is no different than Healthy Hot Girl Summer. This episode is so jam-packed, full of goodness, good information, good techniques for being your best self. I'm so excited to welcome back Heather Maio. And one of the really cool things is that I got so much feedback on our last podcast together.
Yeah, same here. I'm still getting messages about it.
And I think so I decided to invite her back because I love her voice. I love how powerful she is. And actually, guys, if you want to check out, she just started her own podcast called Magic Mindset, which is about aligning your mind, body, and spirit. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, Heather?
Well, thank you, because you're the person who gave me the push to finally do it. So
yes.
Yay. I appreciate you greatly for it. And yes, it's been on my to-do list. It's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time, just to kind of expand upon, the topics that we talk about on Instagram, but there's only so much you can say there, right? And so I'm just excited to finally have a place where I can explore a little deeper into the subjects I'm passionate about.
I love it because I think that the way you approach mindset and just body image and all of that stuff, I was actually listening to the episode on why you threw out your scale yesterday, I believe it was. And I was just like, oh, this is just, it's so good because it's conversations that need to be had that I think aren't being openly talked about in the way that you're talking about them. So make sure you subscribe, share all of her good stuff over on her podcast. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Thank you.
But one of the things we talked about last time, and I've been thinking a lot about, is on our last podcast, if you didn't catch that, that was Healthy Hot Girl Summer. It's a couple episodes back. You're going to want to check it out. But one of the things we talked a lot about on it, I think both of us wanted to dive in more deeply, is the way we speak to ourselves. And I think I want to say specifically as women.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
And one of the things you said last time was, what does your ideal self look like? Who am I in the mix of things? And does my ideal self step on a scale and weigh herself every morning? What does she do? And I just love this concept so freaking much.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And really, I mean, I'm a broken record with this concept, but truly I believe it to be everybody's North Star. And I know for me, it has been by far the most life-changing concept to latch on to, the idea that there is something in me that is all-knowing and that can guide me to what I need to do, something that will push me gently, but something that will also call my bullshit, because I'm a person who needs that very much so. And I like that it kind of applies to everything. But like you said, specifically how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves, because it's my belief that how you talk to yourself is really how you talk to everybody else. How you see yourself is really how you see everybody else. If you are looking in the mirror and seeing your flaws, that's what you're going to see when you look around at the life around you. And so it really, and again, this is just my belief, but I believe strongly that self-talk is the foundation from which everything our life grows from. And so people, I was one of those people who for years felt like very much like a victim or reactive and just,
Yeah.
why is this happening to me? Or why can I never get ahead? And it was like, okay, well, hello, ding dong, you're talking to yourself like everything is negative. All you're doing is seeing your flaws. All you are doing is picking yourself apart. So no wonder that that is all you see when you look at the life that you've built around you. And so it's just, it's everything.
You know, it's interesting because I've been reading this book called Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima.
Mm-hmm.
She's the founder of It Cosmetics. And the last chapter I read was talking about how society expects women to play small and how it plays into her own personal narratives. And she was talking about, like, she got nominated for Forbes like richest women for that
Wow.
for a year, right? Because she sold her company It Cosmetics for like 1.2 billion to L'Oreal.
Mm-hmm.
And this insane thing, but she was talking about how she was like so embarrassed to give the amount like of her net worth.
Oh, yeah.
And she finally agreed to have an interview with Forbes, and they were like, you wouldn't believe the difference between men and women when it comes to owning our stuff or highlighting our successes or allowing ourselves to be confident. Like when a woman is confident, like sometimes she's, appears to be egotistical or too
Yeah.
masculine,
Yeah.
and it's so strange because like you notice this stuff as a female, you notice this stuff, and I'm not just, isolating with females, but this is just,
Mm-hmm.
on my mind, but
Mm-hmm.
you notice that there is that disconnect between like you're supposed to be confident as a woman, but there's also like these stories we tell ourselves on a societal level of like
Mm-hmm.
confidence equals egotistical, rich
Yeah.
equals whatever it
Mm-hmm.
means per person. And I just was like blown away by that chapter because I think that we're just taught to play small from such a young age. And she was even talking about like compliments and receiving a compliment and downplaying it, like, oh, you look like you lost weight. Oh no, I definitely didn't. Like, oh, you look really great today. Oh well, I didn't shower or didn't wash my hair. Like, we
Yeah.
have such a societal tendency to like downplay our
Yeah.
good shit. Like we
Yeah.
downplay our good shit, and it's like accepted that way.
Right. And I also, I mean, this is a huge conversation. God, we just go there, don't we?
we didn't skip a beat.
No, but I mean, but also, just to play devil's advocate to everything that you're saying, because I believe that with every fiber of my being, but let's also be real. We are, as women who are confident, we are judged for that. And we are
Absolutely.
seen as people who are egotistical and cocky and oh my God, how dare she show up like that? What is she thinking wearing that? Like we are, and again, and I, just like you said, I'm talking about women because obviously that's what we know, right? We can
Right.
only speak from our experience, but like I will be someone who will admit this, and it pains me to admit this. I have a post on my Instagram a few weeks ago about jealousy. Like I used to be so jealous of people, and it wasn't that what I really was happening is I was jealous, but I was looking at them and I wanted that, right? Like, and I truly believe that. I feel like women sometimes attack what they don't understand, but they also attack what they are scared to be, because it's like that Marianne Williamson quote, like, as you shine, you give other people the permission to shine. I think that scares people. It scares the shit out of people to see that potential mirrored back in somebody else. And so it's easier for us to discount that or to talk shit about it than it is for us to say, wow, that's what I could do. Or that is available to me. I could vibrate on that level. I could be at that frequency. I could love myself that unapologetically. I could have the confidence to walk into a room with my head held high. Like all of those things can really scare people. And we don't know how to deal with those emotions all the time. And so we judge them or we talk shit about them. And so, which also plays into the narrative of what you're saying. It reinforces that societal belief of like, yes, you should keep yourself small because God forbid, Nichole, you make somebody uncomfortable. God forbid you make somebody see what they could be. It's like, it's such a really fucked up vicious cycle that we, either decide consciously, okay, I'm not going to subscribe to that anymore. I'm going to allow myself to be seen as I am meant to be. I'm allowing myself to show up as the highest version of myself. And I have to be okay with anybody judging that or questioning that, knowing that maybe I'm going to give them permission to do the same. Or I am going to stay in the vibration I'm currently in. And that's in a vibrational cage that's not going to allow me to expand because I spend my whole life judging other people in building walls and building boxes. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a whole thing that we are scared to step into for 100 different reasons, be that other people's opinions or that we understand what stepping into that version of self or of ourselves would mean, right? It would mean the death to a lot of other aspects of ourselves that maybe we're not willing to part with.
Well, and even just having like close friends or family who have opinions about what a powerful woman looks like, or having a role model of what a powerful woman looks like I think that's all just so important. And I was thinking the other day, yesterday actually, I was monitoring some shit within myself, right? Because I'm ready to, I'm ready to just overcome and step into my power in a way I haven't before. And I realized like all these weird stories coming up, because the more you push on opening up to your power, the more aware you become of old stories or old fears. And it's crazy the amount of things we have and rules we have for ourselves that we don't even fucking know we have.
Right. No. And that's the thing about it. Like, I mean that with every fiber of my being. Like, stepping into yourself means having all your bullshit basically thrown at your face, right? Because you're right. You realize all of those, like, oh my goodness, I'm carrying that belief because it served this purpose, or I'm doing these things because it allows me to stay in my smallness, or it allows me to keep procrastinating. It sucks. I feel like awareness is the ultimate gift, but you have to be okay with it also being the ultimate curse because you have to look at shit that you're probably either unconsciously avoiding or you're consciously choosing to avoid, right?
Absolutely. And it's, even I have to tell you a story, and this is me calling myself out, right? So yesterday I made this Instagram story post about like something that was going on with my health. I ended up having like this crazy like wound on the back of my leg that I didn't know where it came from, and it kept like I kept having like more just parts of my skin coming off. Like it was crazy. And so I'm not a person, like I'm a very healthy person. I don't, I pride myself in that. I take really good care of myself. And I've created a story around what a healthy person looks like, does, and says.
Yeah.
and so I'm dealing with this, and I'm like, my intuition is like, you need to get this checked. You need to get this checked. But my logic and my story was, you don't need to go get checked out a cut on your leg. Like, that's so stupid. And so I ended up doing this story because I ended up going to urgent care at the suggestion of one of my nurse friends. And come to find out, I have like really bad cellulitis in the back of my leg, which is a bacterial infection that basically goes into your bloodstream and can make you really fucking sick.
Yeah.
So thank God I went, and I was, talking to the nurse, and I was like, yeah, I almost didn't come because I just feel really silly coming in for a cut on the back of my leg. But even yesterday, as I was telling the story, I was trying to talk about my intuition.
Yeah.
But I had all these stories come up. I ended up deleting the entire thing because I had all these stories come up of like, does talking about physically feeling not well make me look weak? Does talking about this, with people with the intent of, it being about intuition come off as me like seeking sympathy? Because I had all these people who are like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, that wasn't the, wasn't the point. So it was so funny because it was something that was like, honestly, kind of getting to the point of life or death. Like, and obviously I'm being dramatic, but the lady was like, if you didn't come, you would be in the hospital by Sunday. Like, this was serious. But like, I had all these stories coming up about what it meant to be sick, what it meant to talk about being sick. And it was just crazy to me that I almost let something really bad happen to myself. And I think this is like, not just medical though, that we create stories around what we're capable of, what we're not capable of, who we are as a person, and what that looks like. That stops us from making choices or getting to a point where we feel good, because we've created so many stories that block us and keep us in this notion that we shouldn't be or won't be or can't be doing certain things with our lives.
I cut your stories yesterday, and I deal with that frequently too. Like sharing my stuff is more food-based issues. I constantly hear those like, either in voices of imposter syndrome, which obviously that's always my ego talking. That's never my
Right.
highest self. And also voices of like, this is, then people aren't going to trust me as an authority. And I'm supposed to be somebody who, I own a gym. I should know about fitness. I should know about nutrition, where it's like, no. Like, this is, the wound is where the light enters, right? Like, we know these things because we've been through these things. And yeah, it's a whole mind fuck
It is.
of a process. But like, my other point is, I think people, and even people who don't always, like, obviously you and I are on the same wavelength as far as like metaphysical type things, and your thoughts create your reality, but also on a very basic human level, our brain does what we tell it to. And I think people forget that. And so it's easy for people who, maybe don't have the same views as you and I to say, oh, well, self-talk or manifestation, that's all bullshit. It's like, no. If you tell yourself that this is how you live your life, or that is who you are, of course your brain is going to obey you. So yeah, like, it makes such sense. And I think we discount that we have the ultimate control over what we see, what we view, how we show up for ourselves, because we just allow, like you just said, we allow these stories to just become our identities, forgetting that at any time we can choose different. We could choose a different identity. It's going to mean reevaluating a lot of things, but we have the ability to do so.
I think that's like one of our biggest things to pay attention to is like, do I believe something about myself that is stopping me from feeling better? Do I believe something about myself that isn't true? Because I think a lot of people subscribe to, well, this is just who I am, and that is like my
right.
That is my trigger. Like, when I am in a session with somebody and they're like, oh, that's just who I am. I'm an anxious person. I'm a depressed person.
Mm-hmm.
And how I love to like reframe that as, you are a person who has experienced anxious symptoms. You are a person who has experienced depressed symptoms, because I think when we tie ourselves to the story that this is who we are, we don't give our brain any position to find anything better.
No, we latch onto it like in almost like a sick way. Like I mean, we've all known these people, right? Like, like you said, that becomes their full entire identity. People who become sick, and this sickness becomes who they are. Like, that is just everything that consumes them, where it's like, no, this is something, like you said, this is something you're experiencing. This is not who you are, but we allow it to just become everything. Like, I deal with a lot of women who have like various autoimmune conditions, and so obviously nutrition and fitness can play hugely into helping clear up a lot of those things. But like you said, when they come to me with an energy of, this is what I've dealt with, I've tried everything and I've done everything, it's like, whoa, stop. Like, stop telling yourself that you've tried everything and you've done everything. Like, this is what happened in your past. Like, we're going to try different. We're going to try something better. But the most important, people look at me like I have two heads sometimes. And like, before we even get started, the most important thing you and I need to do is make sure that you believe that you are a healthy person. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, that you're not sick. You're not dealing with anything. You are a healthy person. Like, you need to believe that, or else nothing is going to work and nothing is going to change, because your brain can't grasp anything different than what you tell it.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because we do get into patterns of thinking that we don't even realize we have acquired.
Right.
And I think that was like my aha moment yesterday of like, even, last night I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had this viewpoint of what it means when I'm not physically healthy, or what it means to, do these things. And it's crazy how sometimes we just have beliefs that we don't even know where the fuck they came from, but they are an active part of us. And the more we can kind of just sit with that, like, what's under the surface of that?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I, what's the fear? Like, what would I have to believe differently to move out of this? And sometimes, and I've talked a lot about this recently, but sometimes it's really just choosing to be willing to feel differently. So if you're feeling like shit about yourself and you don't have any confidence, and you would identify yourself as the most depressed, insecure person, you have to choose to be willing to see yourself differently in order to crack open any of that. Because if that's the story, like I always compare the brain to a Google search bar,
Mm-hmm.
and you just type in your thought, oh, okay, I'm insecure. Okay, I'm,
Mm-hmm.
depressed. Okay, I'm anxious. And you type in that thought, and your brain will go on a mission to search for everything internally within your memories, within your physical body, for evidence, and then everything in your external world it will start doing. So if we think of every thought about ourselves as a filter for what we're seeing, not only in our past memories and how they construct themselves and come to the surface,
Mm-hmm.
but and in our physical body, but also just everything in our external world. Like if we're filtering, then we have to be really fucking careful about what these filters
Yeah.
are.
Holy shit, that first off, that is an amazing metaphor because it is so spot on. It's like if you're thinking about a yellow car, you see a lot of yellow cars, like, holy shit, of course, that is going to happen. And expanding on that, like, I've worked with a ton of people and we are so, and again, I'm calling out women because it's what I know, it's who I am, it's who I work with, but like, we will believe thoughts like I am fat, which you can't be fat. That's a tissue, right? That's the same as saying I am eyeballs, but like we
Yes.
identify with that so strongly. Like I am fat, I am bloated, I am tired, I am whatever. But saying the opposite, I am beautiful, people are like, what? Wait, what? Like where it feels so foreign. And it's like we have to be okay with the idea that just because something is foreign doesn't mean it's wrong. Because most of us, unfortunately, have lived most of our adult lives, probably most of our adolescent lives as well, telling ourselves negative, derogatory things. I am not good enough. I am not pretty enough. I am not strong enough. I am not smart enough. We tell ourselves those stories. And so when we start rewiring those thoughts into I am enough, I am worthy, I am powerful, I am capable, I am gorgeous, I'm whatever you want to tell yourself, it is hard for us to believe it at first, but it's not because it's not true. It's because it's a new thought, right? Like we are just now telling ourselves and allowing ourselves to have these thoughts. And if we continue to show up for ourselves and allow ourselves to put those thoughts into our search bar, we will start to confirm them. But we need to be willing to go through the initial discomfort of the disconnect that those thoughts feel like. And I feel like, and that's unfortunately where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, no, that doesn't feel good right now. I feel weird saying I am beautiful. I'm weird saying I am healthy. I feel whatever. It's like, don't sit with that discomfort. Learn to keep showing up for yourself, to keep rewiring that. And that's when shit will start to change. But it's buying into the idea that you need to do the initial work to allow those thought process to start to change, to start seeing different, examples, results start coming back into that search bar.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking back. I just got like a memory that popped in my head of one of my clients from when I worked at Family Service Society. I worked for a not-for-profit in the Corning area, and I had this client who I was teaching her affirmation. This was actually before I knew about manifesting anything, but I was teaching her affirmations, and so we created some affirmations, and we were like saying them together. And she looks at me, she goes, "This is bullshit. This feels like bullshit." And I'm like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But then a week or two later, she came back and she goes, all right, I'm feeling it. I kind of get it. Like, she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to believe it. And so I always encourage people, like, if you feel like it's so far-fetched, it'd be like being so in debt to saying, oh, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. Like if it
Mm-hmm.
feels so far-fetched, find a smaller
Right.
belief. Like it's like a stair step. You can make a stair step to I'm a badass, beautiful fucking woman
Right.
from, you know what I mean? Like you can build a stair step of thoughts to get you there, but you just have to be willing to believe in the next best thought. Like
Right.
maybe I'm not super confident, but sometimes I feel confident. I'm feeling a little
Mm-hmm.
more confident every day. I feel a little bit more like myself every day. I feel like I can trust myself a little bit more every day. Like I feel like, the world of affirmations can get messy because that rejection within our
Yes.
soul of like, dude, I've been telling myself this story for so long and it's got such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, like, I think of us coming from the Finger Lakes area, right? We've got all these waterfalls and beautiful like state parks with all these like beautiful water features in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the water has come through so steadily that it's created these like canyons that hold the river because it's cut through the rock because it's gone through so many times. That is your story.
Yeah.
It's the easy flow. It's
Yeah.
easy. It's what you unconsciously go to fast. That is your initial core belief about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're trying to have the water go through the rock in a different angle, we're trying to redirect it, it's going to hit up against the rock at first, but eventually it will start carving a path. And that's the same with our neural pathways, right? Is we have this beautiful path that we've created because only because we've repeated it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that way of thinking about it, because it's like, well, if you believe the thought, like I'll use I am fat for an example, because that's one so many women deal with. If you believe that thought, you should almost be thankful for it, because it shows you that you can believe things that aren't necessarily true, right? So it's like, it proves the point. Like, you can't be fat, but you believe it. But if you can buy into that, why can't you buy into the idea that you are beautiful, that you are worthy, that you are strong? Like, an affirmation I used in the very beginning, because you're right, my thoughts were so disconnected from where I wanted to be. I just kept telling myself, I am trying and I am evolving, right?
Yes.
Like, and that's that baby step. I am not perfect. I will never be perfect. I am not a project, but I'm trying. I'm evolving. I am shifting, like, or I am aware, right? I feel like that, for me, that's a good bullshit caller. When I start having those negative thoughts or those self-deprecating thoughts, it's like, nope, I don't do that anymore. I'm aware that you're here. Thank you for coming and reminding me, but I don't do that anymore. And like, send it on its way. Like, finding little practices to remind yourself when those old stories pop up, or the stories that we're currently living in, but just to remind ourselves, like, no, that thought is not serving me. That thought is not in alignment with who I want to be. I don't need to try to fight it. I don't need to try to do anything. I just need to remind myself that it's not serving me. That's not who I am. Baby step forward, keep it moving.
I'm obsessed with this. Okay. So I love the phrase, I don't do that anymore, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that person anymore. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, if we at least identify, like, I'm not that person who does that anymore. I'm just not, that's not me. I don't do that anymore. It's almost like a negotiation with ourselves of like, like, we create these rules and these boundaries and we get to decide. And that's like the fun part of like creating and designing your life, is like, you get to now decide, now that you know your fucking power, like
who you are.
Yes. Like, now you know, like, that. And I always think of it like this, and I wrote this a little bit in Rock Your Soul, is that if you went to the nursery where the babies are being born, you wouldn't pick out a baby and be like, that's a shitty baby. That baby's like, something's really wrong with that. That baby's broken. Like, you know what like, the way we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't do to a brand new soul, like, because we recognize, and there's part of us inside that recognizes the purity of our soul in its organic form before we start forming thoughts, beliefs from other people, from situations, from society that make us smaller than we are.
Yeah. And we forget that we have that same exact magic that I swear to you, you're in my head, because I have this actually written down in my, like, the same exact thing. Like, anybody who's ever looked in a baby sees their soul. They see their magic, and they forget that they can go to the mirror and see the same fucking thing by looking in their eyes. Like, we forget that. And it's like, I forgot that. I forgot that for years of my life. So I understand the disconnect there. But it's like, if I can acknowledge the beauty in my children, but I can't acknowledge it in myself, there's something wrong. But how many people are living like that, right? It's like, it's so sad. And like, the idea of creating ourselves, like, I feel like that's the same thing as like jealousy and judgment. It's hard for people to grasp. It was really hard for me to grasp onto the idea that I could actively create myself, because I believed myself to be a victim of my circumstances, or, all these different things. I was a teenage mom. I was a college dropout. I was all these different stories that I had told myself. And then I finally realized, well, I created that story. I can create a different one. Like, Madonna has a quote, or no, I think it's Madonna. Like, I am my greatest art project. I love that. I absolutely I love that. And if you would have told me that quote 10 years ago, I would have thought, well, that's inauthentic. Like, that is somebody like being like disingenuous, or like she's faking it. And now it's like, no, not at all. We have the opportunity to create ourselves every single day. How do I want to show up today? That's a question I ask myself every single morning. How do I want to show up today? Well, I'm going to go be that person. Like, I'm creating myself actively every day. And I feel like that's a choice we as humans have to make. We either create ourselves daily, or we react to the situations around us. Like, I'm going to go with creating it, right? Like, it's just shifting. Like, I don't know. Those little tiny shifts just make all the difference. They made all the difference for me, but you have to be willing to grasp onto the idea that like you're in the driver's seat. You just need to be willing to sit there, right?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny because I got a new closet system. So I was going through my closet the other day and I found this box and I had a bunch of, I keep any letter people send me, any card, I love like personal notes from my clients. Like it's my favorite thing. But I have a huge box of them.
Mm-hmm.
In this box was a one of my first manifestation, if I think it was my first manifestation journal. My manifestation journal is like my lifeline. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is where I design myself. Like if I was an artist, this is where I would sit down and sketch it out of like, who do I want to be in this world? What do I want to believe in? And this is a way that I solidify my own thoughts, is by manifesting, is by, you know, writing down a thank you note to the universe as though it's already occurred, as though I'm already that person. And I'm just saying thank you. And I just design like, what do I want to feel? What do I want to feel in, you know, in regards to my business? How do I want to be received? How do I, you know, and I go through all of these facets. And it's so funny because I'm looking through this manifestation journal and I'm like, I can't imagine needing to believe that about myself, but I know I did. I know when I
Yeah.
started this, that I was really insecure, that I was so worried about what people thought about me all the time, that, you know, all of these things that like, I don't think twice about now, but
Mm-hmm.
I wrote myself into existence as
Mm-hmm.
as the person who doesn't write for confidence anymore, because I just have it, because it's always
Yeah.
in me, because it's part of me, because it's my divine birthright. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I've told myself those things so often, so much, that is. And it's just like, I always think of when people are like, oh, they lie so much, they believe themselves. And when you start the process of rewriting your own stories, it will feel like, we talked about it, coming up against a rock. It will
Yeah.
feel like, well, a lie. But the thing is your brain has no clue what is fact and what is not fact.
Mm-hmm. And
It
it wants to
will,
believe you.
it
It is
wants
believing you.
it in its only job. It's like computer software. Its only job is to find evidence of what you're telling it. So you have to
Yeah.
just be very careful of what you're telling it. And you have to be kind of consistent. It's like a gym workout, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very consistent in what you're telling yourself about. And I think you know, you were saying earlier, it starts with awareness.
Yeah. Which can be exhausting. And I understand, like, I'm sure you get the same thing from folks that you work with. Like, I get hit with this a lot when I run coaching groups, because people are like, well, this sounds exhausting. And let me be clear, it is at first. But what great change isn't at first, right? Like, you have to actively participate in these things. It's active rewiring, it's active thought work, it's all of these things. But really, it just comes down to what you just said, being aware. And the other thing you just said, consistency, because anything done with consistency soon becomes a mindless habit. Like, let us not forget that at one point of our lives, brushing our teeth was something that we barely could do, but yet all of us do it without any thought. Like, anything done consistently will become a mindless habit if we allow it to do so. It's just putting in that initial work, which may seem exhausting at first, but consider the alternative. The alternative is living in a life that's below your purpose, living in a life that's, you know, below your soul's calling, living in a life that you're just reacting to. You're not creating. And it's like, I don't want that anymore. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I have to be willing to show up for myself. I think everybody should be willing to show up for themselves. It's really incredible when you decide, like, no, I'm going to be the best version of me, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, and really be committed to that. Because what's the alternative? I don't want to know anymore, you know?
Well, and I think, I mean, absolutely, it's exhausting to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but how fucking exhausting is it
Deal with the
to
bullshit.
to deal with those thoughts? How exhausting is it to feel
Right.
anxious all the time? How exhausting is it to feel sick all the time because you have the story, you know, part of
Yes.
that is the story of being sick. Like, I feel like I in you know, the thing is too, is when you are thinking low level thoughts, and you can tell low level thoughts by the fact that telling yourself you're ugly or fat does
Yeah.
not feel good.
No.
It doesn't, it might feel comfortable, it might feel normal, might feel like a thing you've said before, but it never ever feels good. And I
No.
think that if we can think about how those stories feel so low vibration and so bad. And when we're low vibration, it's like our soul's light starts to dim, and we're at this frequency where not only does it feel tiring, because a lot of people, when they have those low level thoughts, they attract more low level thoughts.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will be like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I can't do anything, I'm so tired. Like, even just those phrases will make you feel tired. So when
Even
you're in
more.
that low vibration, you attract more thoughts like that.
Yeah.
And then I believe that with manifestation, you attract more experiences that make you feel that way. And so when you start to shift up and out, like we were talking about, when you start to I choose to be willing to see things differently. I don't do that anymore. I'm not that, like, when you start that different language and you say it out loud, you write it down, you just say it in your head, you write it on your mirror, you write it on a vision board, whatever that looks like for you, to move yourself out of that space. I feel like you just truly start to have more energy. Like, when I'm full soul, when I'm like taking good ass care of myself, and I am like eating good and feeling good and connecting with people and feeling like totally myself, I have so much energy. I have so much energy.
And you're open to even more. Yeah.
And everything, like, good shit just happens, and it consistently happens. And it's rare that something not amazing happens when I'm in that vibe within myself and I take good care of myself in that mental and physical way. Sometimes I spend a lot of time journaling to get my mind right before I take action on things.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do more work around believing something and working to find a better belief than I do in the action phase half the time, because that is my basis for stepping into that and having it be successful. And I'll know when it's go time. I'll know when I write that. I'm like, hell yeah, I am. Like, hell yeah, that will work for me, because it gets to, like, the thing is when people like call me, and I've had sessions, where people call me and they're like, oh man, like, this happened for me. And it was like, of course it did. Of course it did, because you're on purpose. You're not a fucking mistake. You're on purpose. You're stepping into your destiny, and the universe can't help but show up for you when you choose differently for yourself. The universe can't help but create a freaking path for it.
Yeah. I mean, like, when you want something, the whole universe conspires to give it to you. I believe that with every soul in my being, but it's like, remember that what you're asking for, like you just said, if you're asking to be tired, that's what you're going to be. If you're asking to, oh my goodness, all these things always happen to me, like, this is so unfair. It's like, of course, you're just going to keep getting more things that confirm that, where it's, like, I feel like we have a choice. We fight for our potential. We fight for our amazingness, for lack of a better term, or we fight for our bullshit. Like, we're fighting for one of them at all times. So it's just deciding of what side of the fence we're really going to stand on that day, and then continuing to decide what side of the fence we're going to stand on that day.
And I think, like, the one thing that I'll say is that, like I said, yesterday, I've been doing this work for a decade, and yesterday I had some bullshit come up, right? Doing this work doesn't eliminate the fact that you still might develop or have bullshit stories.
Of course.
But what we do is we recognize them, we forgive ourselves for them, and we move the hell on. Like, I think that sometimes our error in our progress is dropping the phone and then not just picking it up, but stepping on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't just crack it. We stomped on it for days and days and days. And then we got to go get a new screen and, figure that out later. Like, I just think that we have this weird way of adding insult to injury by just getting into this mode where we don't give ourselves permission to just say, okay, I forgive myself for feeling that way. I understand and accept that story, and also identify that it does not have to be my truth.
Right. It's the fuck it effect. I mean, I see this all the time with dieting, where it's like, oh my goodness, I ate the extra slice of pizza I didn't need, so fuck it. I'm going to blow the motor. I'm going to eat all the carbs in my cupboard because I ruined today. And it's like, no. Put that in any other situation of our life. If I broke my arm and said, hey, would you mind coming over here and throwing a rock on my other arm? And you'd be like, why? But, well, I broke this one, I might as well break the other one. That's not logical. But we do that with, like you said, we do that with so many areas of our life. It's like, nope, one bad mistake, I'm just going to allow this boulder to keep going, where again, I will argue, because I agree with you 1,000%. This does not mean that we are spared from ever dealing with bullshit again. Not at all. Honestly, I feel like it's almost even, it makes us even more aware of our bullshit, because it's that word again, it's awareness. And so self-improvement to me, in, fighting for our potential, that's not to say that those stories don't happen. It's just having the awareness of when they do happen, not making them worse. That's all it is, right? Like, I feel like that's, and again, I'm somebody who struggled with procrastination, self-sabotage. Like, that's my story. That was my story for years. So if I can just simply be aware of when I am falling back into those habits and those behaviors, I've made a huge improvement. That doesn't mean I stand in the mirror and immediately go and look into my eyes and do mirror work, or, get out my crystals and start. No. It just means I'm like, Heather, you're in some bullshit right now. Do not fuck it yourself up worse, because that does not serve you. Like, stop it. Like, that's, to me, almost the epitome of self-improvement. Just having that awareness and being able to call yourself out kindly, and sometimes not so kindly, but just being able to call yourself out so you don't slip back further and allow, like you said, that stream to go right back on the original path. It's like, no, we started building this dam. We're not taking it apart right now.
I've never heard of the fuck it effect, but that's going to be a new
oh my God. It's
new thing in my repertoire. I love that.
It's, it's fun. Like, my world is food. Right. And so, but I really do feel like this, the food stuff applies to everything, where it's like,
does.
It's like you said, the Google search bar. If we start our day by, spilling our coffee and then dropping our lunch on the way to our car, we tell ourselves, well, I'm having a bad day. And then we just go around confirming it. That's the fuck it effect. It's where it's like, nope, I spilled my coffee. I'm going to choose to laugh at that, because objectively it is pretty funny. And I'm going to choose to just, okay, I'm starting over. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have a choice. We just forget that we have that choice sometimes.
Any minute of the day is a chance to start over. Any minute of your life experience is a chance to start over. Any minute you can decide to be a better version of yourself. And I love to invite the universe into this. Like, I love to say, like, help me, like, help guide me to my best self. I've been trying to include the universe in more of just day-to-day moments of what would be the right thing to say in this moment. Like, what would be, my most authentic voice in this moment, and just kind of opening to receiving that inspiration instead of always feeling like I've got to do it on my own. I think that we are well loved and well helped, depending on obviously people's beliefs. But, I think allowing the universe to support us. If we look at that baby, we know there's a soul in there. We know that there was just like a womb portal from the other side. And, I think that there's something so magical about that. But what if we just constantly remember that we have that access? Like, what if we constantly remember that we have the ability to access our higher self, if we just invite that in, if we just open up to it, of, I'm choosing to see things differently, help me see things differently, whoever you pray to, whatever you intend, but just to invite that in. Because I think, relying on ourselves can be challenging, because we know we self-sabotage sometimes, or we know we have, issues with depression sometimes, or we know, like, we have the awareness. And so sometimes we need to even take that extra step of just like, guide me to my best self. Show me how to use my world, my gifts on purpose. Show me how to impact the most amount, people. Show me. And I love to invite that in, because it just makes me feel like, dude, the universe has my back. I'm going through this change. I'm choosing to do it. And I know that if I choose right now to step into my best self, like you said, the world will move out of the way so that I can be that, so I can do that. And sometimes it is just that awareness, because I think awareness, whether it's of your own shit, or whether it's of, I think the universe might be helping me out, or I think there is a universe helping me out. I think the biggest thing awareness does is it creates possibility.
Yes.
To do, to have, to feel, to experience something different.
Yeah, absolutely. To see, what maybe we might be. And it's the same with like manifestation, right? Like, we know not to be super specific, because we may be cutting ourselves off from something greater. I feel like that's where that trust comes in. And I understand not everybody has that same beliefs, but I'll also be, I don't know, I'll be snarky enough to say I feel sorry for people who don't, because it's like, wow, like, I just don't want to live in a space where I don't believe that there is something out there, like, or I don't know. I don't even know how to put that into words. I think you understand what I'm saying. And I'm sure
I get it.
a
Yeah.
listener of your podcast is also going to understand exactly what I'm saying. But it's like, I just truly believe the older I get, the more life continues to unfold for me. I just really, truly believe that we have no idea the magic we are capable of. And our only job is to believe in our potential, and everything else will be taken care of us. And it's just like, what a crime, what a shame to live our life in any other vibration. You don't have to, like you said, we don't have to do anything else but just believe that our soul's purpose will be laid out for us if we show the universe or God or our angels or whatever you believe in. Like you said, if we just show that we are willing to do the work that it takes, that our soul's calling will require of us, if we just show up for that, I think the rest will just fall into our lap, kind of. Not to say it's not work, because we have to show, with our self-talk, we have to show that, like, I can't say that I'm going to help women heal their relationship with food and then treat my body like shit. Like, those two things aren't in alignment together, right? Like,
Yeah.
so how we treat ourselves really is how we treat the world around us. But when we see that, okay, if I can show up authentically and beautifully for myself, I can open the door to possibilities I never even dreamed of. Like, wow, what a cool space to be in. It geeks me out. And it also makes me incredibly sad for anybody who doesn't also share some form of that belief.
One of my favorite studies, and I wish I could find this study. It was in a book I read, and at one point I was binge reading like 4 books a week. So I can't tell you which one, but I remember it very vividly because it had such a profound effect on me. And I think one of the stories I was telling myself, I had kids really young as well. So one of the stories I used to tell myself was like, it's all on me, right? It's all on me. And I have to sacrifice everything to be a good mom. Like, being a mom means you sacrifice your wants, your needs, your desires, right? That was a big story for me when I first had my daughter, because I had her when I was barely 20, so that was a big story. And I remember reading this book, and it was talking about how they took a couple monks and they had them meditate on peace, harmony, and love in this apartment building in one of the highest polluted and crime-ridden cities. And they watched, I think, for 3 months, around 3 months, as these monks prayed most all day, every day, over the city. And they watched like the crime rate go down by like 20%. The pollution rate went down by like 30% over these. And there was no like substantial city changes. There was no other like major things. So I always think of like the power of one person housing that kind of energy, being at their best, and it unconsciously impacts every freaking thing around them. So when I'm working, especially with moms, because I have such a special place in my heart for moms, being a young mom, I hear that you understand that. But I have such a special place because I love to teach women the power of just becoming your best self, taking time to refill, taking time to make yourself important, teaching and modeling those things you want your kids to do. And when you're happy, when you're glowing from the inside out, I'm telling you, that will change lives. That changes the whole structure of a room. When you have somebody walk in who's just this bright light, the whole room lights up, and you can feel that, and you can identify those people. And what a better way to like change the world, to impact the people around you, to be a better, wife, mom, whatever you're trying to be, than to start feeding yourself better stories, start bringing your light back up, start bringing your mental frequency at a space where just being yourself is enough.
It is. And like it's not even only enough. It's everything. It is everything. And we know this to be true. If you put somebody with shitty energy in a room, we feel it. And nobody denies that. Even people who aren't quote unquote believers, they don't deny that. They don't deny that they can feel somebody else's anger. Guess what? Like you said, it works with light too. It works hugely with light. And it's, we're speaking the same language. Like, I deal with moms who don't have time to put their health first, who don't have time. And it's like, no. what you model is what will be reflected back in their lives. And like, that was the one thing that really helped kickstart my relationship and my healing with my body and food, was realizing, oh my goodness, I have a little soul looking at me,
Yeah.
and she's going to see what I am doing. And I cannot even deal with the idea of her treating her body the same way I'm treating myself. And it's just like, all we have to do, it's not selfish. It is the most sanctified, holy thing you can do by putting yourself first. And yes, that includes moms, because guess what? If your cup's empty, so is everybody else's around you. Like, it's just reframing that type of like, not being selfish. You're not being anything. You're allowed to pour into yourself and think about it, of what you would want your daughters or sons. Like, I'm a boy mom too, and they deal with the same shit. Believe me, I see that at the gym all the time. How do I want them to act? That means I need to hold myself to that same standard. So, yeah.
Heather, these conversations with you are so fucking good. Like, they're so good. So good. I want to like summarize a little bit before we end, because we covered so much.
A lot.
We covered so much, but it's so good because I really feel like people need to hear it. I feel like, as people who actively do the work, I still need to hear, those things sometimes, and talk about it and be reminded of it and be in the energy of healing and change and possibility. So I think, if you are somebody who really has some bad stories going on, write them down. Just look at them and see what they are. Ask yourself if there's, truth maybe where you got them. I always love to study my thoughts and just be like, where the hell does this even come from? Like, why is this there? Is it helpful for me at this point in my life? And just asking yourself those questions. And then who do I want to be? What does my ideal self do, look like, feel like, act like? What would you add to that?
I anything really, just, is this serving me? Like, not to say a thought, don't even ask if it's true, because it doesn't matter. Is it serving you? That's what matters. Is this thought in alignment with who I want to be? Is this thought in alignment with my highest self? Is this thought helping me show up in the world as I wish to be seen? And if it is, cool, keep it. If it's not, I don't even try to, I'm also a fan of writing them down, and I will fully admit I go full on hippie, and then I burn those things. Like, fuck that energy. I don't want it around me. But like, energetically, just letting yourself know, no, I don't do that anymore. Like, let that be a mantra. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I am evolving. I am shifting, but with kindness, but also be aware that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is also call your bullshit. And this is coming from somebody who needed her bullshit called for years, and I still need my bullshit called all the time. So it's just like being okay with just shining a light on that, and just reminding, like, is this serving me? Yes, no, check the box, and keep it moving in whatever way feels authentic to you.
Yes, all of that. And keep in mind you're supported and you're loved and you're guided. Keep in mind that you can invite in the universe to help you. You can invite in angels, you can invite in God, you can invite in just your higher self, like whatever you are willing to believe in and open up to in your time, in your way. But play with what is possible for you, play with what you can believe in. I love listening to affirmation videos. Just, I love hearing people like riff on things, because it's just thoughts and beliefs that are new to me, so that I can kind of adopt to, ooh, I really like that. I like to let things be easy. I like to let change be easy. I like to let it be easier. I like to feel stronger while doing it. I like to envision myself on the other side and how friggin' easy it was to be on the other side. Just like little riffs like that get me in such a vibe to like feel more empowered. And we talked about the snowball effect with negative thoughts, but it's also a snowball effect with positive thoughts. When you start in that frequency of looking at my life and looking at myself of like, how would I rather feel? How would I rather this go? And then choosing there, well, I choose to feel better about it. I'm feeling better and better every day. It feels good to be me. I trust myself to make choices. Like, when you can riff on those things too, you build this momentum that's just unmatched.
Well, I think what you do is we are shifting our energy by that. It allows us to like daydream. Adults, stop daydreaming. I daydream all the time with a big fucking smile on my face, because that's what allows us to, like, as soon as you start, it shifts your energy. So like, you can see it. I imagine myself doing things that I don't even want to speak into existence, yet. I would tell them to you, but it's like, you don't want negative energy coming at them, right? I'm sure
Right.
you also should. It's like, but it's like, I imagine things that maybe sound outlandish to some people, but I imagine them as if they're happening right now in that moment, because that's a good way for me to shift my energy back to, like, when I'm having those negative thoughts, back to a vibrational frequency that I know serves me. And it's like, oh, no, that's what I'm going for. That's where my highest self sits. How do I get there? Like, I just picture it happening, and we have to be okay. Like you said, play, daydream. When did we stop dressing up and playing pretend? I don't know, but I'll do that every single day of my life if I need to, if it means I'm going to shift my energy and raise it higher.
Absolutely. And just like allow yourself and give yourself permission to go there. Allow yourself and give yourself permission to not write anything off. And I think when we open ourselves up to that possibility, I mean, that's a total game changer. But this has been such an amazing conversation, Heather. I just feel like this conversation will reach so many people and impact so many lives. And I'm setting that intention that people truly hear that, people truly take their power back, and leave this podcast feeling like anything is fucking possible. And yes. So where can people reach you? They make sure you're following, subscribing to Heather's podcast as well, Magic Mindset. It's on Apple. Where else can they find it?
Apple, Spotify, all the main ones. I think the easiest way is right on Instagram, because that'll, kind of link to anything. But yeah, thanks for having me. I cannot wait I could talk to you all day, girl.
Yes. Do you want to drop your Instagram handle real quick, just so people can find you?
It's my name, Heather, then period. So Heather.Maio, MAIO.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Heather. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicholeEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicholeEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.